Hello, 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 hello. Let me add my brother here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm excited. How are you
Yes.
today?
Oh, I am equally excited, if not more.
Yes.
Yes. To be on the platform with you is such a
Oh,
joy, a privilege, and an honor
oh, same
to
here,
be on
brother.
with my dear sister and a premier therapist and woman
Amen.
of God in the field.
Amen. You're such an edifier. Thank you, brother. I'm honored to be there. I was just telling somebody I love Fredrick. He is my brother. We try to support each other as much as we can, and I'm excited to have you here. You're the first 2025 podcast of the
Ooh,
I'm excited about that. You're starting us off, and 2025 represents my fifth year doing podcasting. So I am so excited.
wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the other thing too, like this is our first time using this platform. We're recording today on StreamYard. And normally when you've been with me before, we were on Zoom. So can you see me and hear me better? Okay.
Yes, everything looks good. And,
Oh,
even as I'm looking at my background, it looks pretty clear. It's crisp.
yes. Good, good, good. Well, I'm excited.
Yes.
Today we're talking a little bit about just stress and stress being universal and how we respond is personal. And we at some point during our conversation we are going to highlight the event of the year that's coming. You have an event
Oh,
coming that I want to definitely help you promote, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but let's get into it in terms of why this topic of stress is universal. That alone, I mean, people who are listening, I'm sure there's so many people who will listen to this and say, you know what, when you hear the word stress, immediately something happens. And so let's talk about why you're passionate about this topic.
yes, because I know that when stress is not managed properly, it can be the catalyst for disease processes.
Mhm.
It could have an impact on, our functioning, our daily functioning. Unmanaged stress can also lead to mental illness and mental health challenges. People can gravitate toward substance abuse to try to manage that stress. So, I'm really passionate about it, being in the field, being
Yes.
a dually licensed counselor. So I'm a licensed professional counselor and a marriage and family therapist. And then also on the spiritual side, occupying the office of a bishop. So when I think about managing stress, I think about it from a holistic standpoint,
Yes.
that we have to take into consideration the things that weigh on our mental health, physical health, emotional well being, our relational interactions with others. And so at some point, we're going to incur stress in one or more of those areas. And so I'm really passionate about, helping people to resolve those issues so that they can have a qualitative life experience.
Absolutely. And forgive me. So, for those of you who are listening, I just kind of jumped in. This is my brother, but I want to do a better job of honoring who you may be thinking, well, who is Fredrick Gillam? Who tell me about him? You haven't told me anything about Fredrick Gillam. And so I want to say that, first of all, Fredrick Gillam is known as Bishop Fredrick Gillam. He is definitely a man after God's own heart. He is married to the love of his life, Trina. I want to honor your wife, Trina Gilliam, today, and you've been married 30 years.
30
That is
years, yes, to God be the glory. 30
the
years to
glory.
my high school sweetheart, and a total of 36 because we dated for 6 years prior to us getting married. So, I'm just so just grateful to God. He's given me my good thing in favor.
Praise God. Absolutely. Two adult children. They both serve as executive pastors of the Journey Christian Church in Cordova. There's a lot I could say about Fredrick. They also provide support to couples through Hearts of Fire Couples Ministry. I got to learn about that later. And so there's a lot that I could say about him. He's also in private practice. He's a senior counselor and consultant of Aesthetic Life Counseling Services here in Memphis, Tennessee. Fredrick has worked with individuals and couples, and he is a speaker of all things faith and mental health. He serves as the director of Pastoral Clinical Services for the Church Developers Network Diocese, and he also serves as a clinical partner with the Christian Psychological Center through their Memphis Resilience Project. So just a little bit I want to share about you so that as people are listening, they can go, oh, that's Fredrick Gillam. And we're going to talk a little bit about the amazing ministry that you started with Shepherd's Symposium coming up on March 3rd. So I can't wait to share that because that's going to be the icing on the cake. So let's take a step back a little bit and just if I were to ask you to define stress, like how would you define stress?
Yeah, so really, when you break the word stress down, it just means pressure. It's
Yeah.
pressure that's being applied, and that pressure could be applied in different ways. We could experience stress due to the weather. It's too hot outside,
Mhm.
so it's causing some discomfort within our body that can be stressful. It's too cold. Um, we could experience stress on the job, workplace stress. So, but it's pressure, and
Yes.
that pressure that is applied from different areas, whether it's environmental, whether it's workplace, whether it's relational, right?
Mhm.
And the more pressure that's applied, then it causes a breakdown in our immune system, right?
Yes.
Because we weren't designed to carry extremes amount of stress on a prolonged basis. So,
Mhm.
and that's why I
Mhm.
say stress is universal because none of us are exempt, including myself.
That is
Uh,
so
as a therapist and as
true.
a minister, just because I wear those hats, it doesn't mean that I'm exempt. I don't have like this cape on, that inoculates me from stress. We
Yeah,
all experience stress in
absolutely.
some way, form, or fact. We can have stress as a result of, something going wrong in our body. If we're incapacitated in a certain way, that can cause stress. I had a situation last year. I
Mhm.
was in um, I was in Florida. My wife and I were there for a conference,
Mhm.
and I was having some sciatic nerve pain.
Mm.
And the pain was so severe that while we were there, one day I almost passed out. And
Oh.
because my body was responding to the stress of the
Mm.
pain, and it had affected my gait, the way I was walking. And
Mhm.
so I incurred a lot of stress. So it can show up in different ways. And then stress can also be good. So oftentimes when we think about stress, we just think about how, it could be detrimental, but we can have what we call eustress,
Mhm.
EUSTRESS, and that
Yeah.
means the good stress. So
Mhm.
this is the stress that comes about when we're doing like exercise.
Mhm.
So that's the good stress. Or when we're going to school and we're pursuing a degree, there's a measure of stress, but there's a reward
Mhm.
that can benefit us holistically.
Yes.
So, and then just it could be the stress of planning a party, but it has to be stress that is giving us a positive return,
Mhm.
because the toxic stress or the distress is not giving us a positive return. It's actually leading to the decline of our overall health. So we have
Yeah.
to be able to distinguish the type of stress that we're experiencing.
Absolutely. And I love how you explain that. And because it is pressure. As soon as you said that, there's a scripture that says, as pressure and stress bear down on me, I find joy in your commands. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the impact and even as believers, how we experience stress and we try to suppress our stress. We try to act like we're all fine and everything's good. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because, a lot of times as believers, and whether people are listening, believers or not, we have a tendency of masking our emotions. And so when somebody says, how are you doing? We're so quick to be like, I'm blessed and highly favored. This is the day that the Lord
Yes.
has made. And this is the day that the Lord has made. And I'm stressed. It's okay
And
to
I'm stressed. Yeah,
yeah,
and you know what? I give some biblical examples when I'm doing presentations sometime. When we think about Job, Job
yeah,
was extremely stressed because he was
absolutely.
dealing with grief and
Yeah,
loss. You know,
yes.
he had lost significant property. He
Hmm.
had lost livestock. He had
Hmm.
lost servants that were
Yes,
faithful, loyal to him. I mean, Job, if you want an employer, you wanted to be employed by Job. So he lost family members. His children all died together on the same day, right? And then he lost his physical health.
yes.
And so, it helps it to be real for us when we see it in scripture that
Hmm.
someone who has so much favor with God, but yet he also was stressed and he was suffering. Just
Absolutely.
like Adam and Eve.
Hmm.
They had two sons,
Hmm.
Cain and Abel, and they lost both sons on the same day. One son murdered the other, and then the other son was exiled.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they're dealing with those two sons not being in their lives, grief and loss, stress.
Yeah.
How did this happen? Right?
Yeah. And since you brought up Job having to deal with the stress of his unsupportive, I almost said crazy friends, but his unsupportive friends after 7 days, I'm sure they stressed him completely all the way out. The first 7 days they were fine because they were quiet. But once they opened their mouths, that had to have been stressful when your friend tells you it's because you sin, that's why you're suffering, or it's because your children,
Oh, the
that's
judgment.
it's your fault,
Yes,
basically. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
That's a whole.
And that happens when the
That's a whole.
community. Yeah, stress
Yeah.
from the community, the lack
And
of support,
yes.
the lack of understanding, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's stress because we don't understand what we're going through. We're trying to figure some things out, and not being able to have answers can be stressful.
Absolutely. And it's a natural thing. All of us have this propensity in us, this thing, the need to know why. We always want to analyze and understand. We're always curious to understand. So when things are not able to be grasped or not able to be understood, our first question is what's happening? Why is this happening? Right. And so I could imagine when we feel, for those of us with control issues, right, when we feel out of control, then we are susceptible to stress. One of the things I always share, when the way that I understand it, I love how you said it's how our bodies respond to a demand or a pressure. I say a demand, right, which causes the pressure. But there's
Mm,
three different types of stress, right? You talked about the eustress. I learned it as the way I share it is that there's positive stress, there's tolerable stress, and there's toxic stress. So the positive
yes,
stress relates to the eustress. The if I'm working out and my heart starts to recognize the stress, I start to sweat, or my heart starts beating fast, or I'm breathing a little faster, right? Like I'm still or I'm studying for a test or something. That's a stress, but it's positive. The tolerable
yes,
stress is usually what people experience when they're going through a loss, but they have a support. They have somebody to say, "Oh my gosh, you're going to get through this. I'm praying for you. What do you need?" It's still stressful, but they have a support in place to be able to help them navigate that stress. The toxic stress, we've seen this in our clients, we've seen it probably in our lives, is that we want to, I liken it to being stuck or trapped in a room with a bear or a snake. Now, I don't know about you.
Ooh.
I can't do snakes. I
That's
can't.
some stress.
That's some stress. I can't get out and there's a bear and a snake. That's toxic stress, and that's when we start to see the body breaking down. For a lot of women, reproductive issues, the lymphatic system, immune system is compromised. People are susceptible to cancers, and just a lot of issues. People get GI issues, their stomach starts to hurt. Even for men,
Yes,
as we start to see strokes, and we start to see a lot of medical conditions even get worsened if it wasn't already there, right? And so when
Yeah.
you think about the types of stress that we experience and the type of stress that people are under, there are still people that are not aware of, how do I know I'm stressed? What are
Yeah,
my
that's good.
signs of stress? What would you say to that?
I would say pay attention to your body because you mentioned some things like, when we're stressed,
Hmm.
we tend to crave certain foods, right? So when
Yes.
we're craving the sweet, the sugar, we're craving the salt, the salty foods.
Hmm.
Uh, we could be stressed because we're not getting enough sleep, right? Because of that pressure, our mind is not turning off because we're overwhelmed with whatever situations that are really weighing heavy on us.
Yes.
So not enough sleep, sometimes too much sleep, right?
Yes.
And uh, not able to focus or concentrate. We
Hmm.
can be stressed in that regard. Sometimes your blood pressure can be elevated, your heart rate could be up. We call it tachycardia. So
Hmm.
elevated heart rate. Notice that you get flustered easy, like start sweating and things of that nature,
Hmm.
because it is a response of the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight,
Yeah.
uh, when we're stressed. And so what the body wants to do, because the brain is saying, hey, I'm in survival mode and I need to do something to get you to a place of equilibrium where things are balanced out. But sometime we're in a situation where we can't get away from the stress. Like,
Hmm.
it could be some things that are happening in the home. So it could be compounded, it could be layered, the stress.
Hmm.
So, and God didn't design us again to carry that stress for long periods of time. I use this analogy. I
Hmm.
say, if you have a baker and let's say they're going to bake a cake and they put it in the oven and they set the timer and then it's time for the cake to come out, and somebody who's an observer says, oh, the cake is done, are you going to turn the oven off? And they
Hmm.
say, no, I'm not going to turn it off, I'm going to just leave it on because I'm going to use it again. Right? You're going to be like, huh? You're supposed to turn it off when you're
Yeah.
done with it. And
Yeah.
that's what the way God designed our nervous system. When we're in fight or flight, it's supposed to be for short spurts, and then it gets turned off so that
Yeah.
we can go into a place of rest and relax with our parasympathetic nervous system. But what
Hmm.
happens when you go from stressor to stressor, the oven is being left on,
Ooh.
and as a result, it is creating all of these conditions that are uh, juxtaposed or working against our overall health.
That is so good. I have a recent example. For some reason, I had two events in one weekend. Now, that was not the intention. One event was scheduled in 2024. The other event just happened to be moved to the same weekend of the initial event because of the snow. And so I'm a vendor, and then now I have to rush over to the church after I'm finishing to go speak. Well, I noticed for me, when there's a particular thing that happens with my body when my capacity is full, when that over
Mm,
has been on too long, right? I just feel full. I immediately get a headache. That's a sign. That's a sign that I have no more capacity. I need a moment to decompress. And so, and it's very difficult when you are not able to take that moment, where you're not able to communicate. The only thing I knew to do was to go to the ladies' room, just to sit there and pray and say, God, I need you to replenish me because I have nothing to give since I'm about to get up and speak. And so it's so important what you just confirmed. It's very important for us to take time to know when we are depleted, like
yes,
understand what are my cues. For some people it may be, you may get experience a headache, you may experience that you just feel very full, like your head feels cloudy. You may start to experience concentration issues. You may start
tightness in the chest.
tightness in the chest. What else?
Hmm.
Stomach ache. You might
Hmm.
I just experienced just lethargy, just very tired.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's so important to not ignore that.
Irritable. Sometimes you're irritable.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Or it may be some anxiety, right?
Mm,
What we call it in the therapeutic world, psychomotor agitation, where you're just kind of fidgeting and people
yeah,
can see that, right? And then that also can lead to other behaviors
yes.
that go along with that anxious feeling
Mm,
that comes about, like
absolutely.
picking at the cuticles or biting the nails. It's all kind of different things that could manifest that are stress responses.
Absolutely. This is why I believe you cannot take care of your soul if you don't practice awareness of yourself,
Wow,
right?
that's good.
Like
Yes.
self-awareness has to
I'll tell you one thing. A few years ago, one of
Mhm.
my favorite drinks when I would go out to the restaurant, sweet tea with lemon. Oh my goodness, I love some sweet tea. But I didn't know the damage that it was
Mm,
doing to my body with all of the
mm,
caffeine in the tea. And
mm,
so whenever I would get stressed because I had so much caffeine stored up in me, it was causing me to sweat profusely.
mm,
When in other situations, if I had a lot of water, right, because my body doesn't have to work as hard to get those toxins out if I'm drinking water. But that sweet tea is just storing up the toxins, all of that sugar and that caffeine. So it
mm,
has to come out. And so when you're stressed, because your heart rate is already elevated, along with the caffeine and the sugar, then for me it was like, whoo, and that was causing more stress because
yeah.
now, oh, people are seeing, that I'm sweating, and I don't want people to see that. So that anxiety. So
Mhm.
being able to also pay attention to what we're eating, what we're taking in,
Yes.
that can also lead to the breakdown of our body or to systemic functions that are not working properly within us.
Hmm. How should one communicate their stress? Like if because we're not going to function at our best. You said irritability. So most times
Hmm.
when we're stressed, depending on the level of stress, we are not at our best. And so for
Correct.
for a lot of people, they don't have the tools. We have tools. We're leaders. We're therapists. We're counselors and consultants. We teach tools, but some people don't have the tools. How do I now communicate? First, I have to be aware that I am stressed, and how do I now communicate that to somebody that maybe this is what's going on with me, or maybe here's what I need. Well, how do we communicate that?
Yeah, I think we have to deal with the stigma because we have to be okay with not being okay, first
Yep.
of all, because like not being okay, we're thinking about, well, how would that translate over to others? So I
Yeah.
can't say that I'm not okay because
Mhm.
I'm thinking I'll be perceived a certain way, right?
Yes.
So we got to deal with the stigma, and stigma is a negative set of beliefs
Mhm.
about someone or something. So
Mhm.
if we have a negative set of beliefs about vulnerability, about
Mhm.
seeking help or asking for help, so that's why people typically, especially among minorities and even among like the more spiritual segment
Mhm.
of the population, don't seek help because it's considered to be taboo, right?
Yeah.
That I'm
Yeah.
supposed to power through this, do it on my own, pull myself up by my own bootstraps,
Mhm.
and meanwhile I'm suffering in silence. So
Yep.
we have to embrace the resources that God has given us. And I
Absolutely.
know for me, even in my own family, having a child that had ADHD with oppositional defiance, I didn't know what that was at the time. I just thought, all right, you're just being rebellious and this and that. But if you keep using a tool that's not appropriate to address a situation, the situation will never get fixed.
That's very true.
And so until I embraced a resource that God had put in place, family counseling for my own family, That's what
Mhm.
made the difference. God began to take me to school right in my own family, which
Yes.
also helped to shape me to be a more well-rounded therapist,
Yes.
and man of God.
Yes.
Because other than that, I would still have this thought process like counseling. Nobody needs counseling. Nobody needs medication and all of
Mhm.
this kind of stuff. And they just want to medicate kids. Some people need medication. God
Yeah.
has ordained medication.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. And some people need therapy. God has ordained therapy, right? And
Yes.
and I know it's been a blessing to me and my family.
Yes. And my saying, I live by this motto that you can have Jesus and a therapist.
Yes,
You know, so
absolutely.
yes. So just take a moment to talk a little bit about, because we identified what stress is. We identified how to recognize it in your body and signs to look for. We identified, okay, how do I communicate it? The next thing I want to talk about, and this is for everybody because it's a universal problem, is how where do I begin? You just kind of alluded to it in terms of I may need to see a therapist to process the things, because a lot of times we have stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed so much. We have so many things pent up. I just had a client today and she just said, Ms. B. Wendy, I have so much of bitterness and resentment and anger pent up inside of me. And we see that so many people are holding things and suppressing their emotions, right? Talk about stress. And so how do I what do I do with it? I know you alluded to counseling, but what do I do? How do I cope with it? What do I begin to do to de-stress, right? To not just get rid
Yes, that's good.
yeah,
Because some coping strategies, may be appropriate, and,
right.
and and a person needs to be able to assess what is it that they're doing that is working for them.
Hmm.
Because this is really all about self-care, taking
Hmm.
care of self. So
Hmm.
if an individual is already exercising, if they're already like meal planning, and they're looking at what is the dietary intake in the relationship with food,
Hmm.
and all of that, and then being able to create another list and saying what is it that I'm doing that's unhealthy, that needs to
Yeah.
be discarded, that needs to be replaced, because
Hmm.
ultimately that's what it really boils down to. And then what is our belief or thought process about certain tools that can be helpful? Because like some people might say, I don't like to exercise, but the thing about exercise, you don't do it because you like it, you do
Right.
it because it's necessary,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
And so really it's just like creating a new association, like,
Hmm.
oh, I don't like vegetables. Well, you don't eat vegetables because you like them.
Hmm.
You eat vegetables because of the nutrients and your body needs that. But
Hmm.
oftentimes we're not having those type of conversations
Hmm.
that would cause us to gain the insight or the revelation of these things that can create more of a
Yeah.
qualitative life experience. It's
Yes.
kind of like we're going off of autopilot, and we're continuing to utilize the things that we receive from our family of origin, or
Hmm.
what the culture says is
Hmm.
acceptable.
Yeah.
uh, but once we realize that my health is my responsibility,
That's right.
and that if I don't make lifestyle changes, that's it right there. It's
Absolutely.
lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
then what I can be doing, or what someone can be doing without even realize they're doing, is shortening their lifespan.
That's right.
Yeah. So if we want to have longevity,
Hmm.
there are some things that we can do, and we can start to explore and say, if I'm having all of these challenges and the things that I've tried is not working, then let me
Yes.
explore what are some other options. Maybe I could consider therapy, because
Yes.
therapy means healing. If I see
That's
a counselor, it doesn't mean the counselor is better than me. It
mm-hmm.
doesn't mean the counselor doesn't have their own issues, because it's universal. but it
Yes.
does mean that that person is qualified
Mm-hmm.
to sit with you in that space
Mm-hmm.
to help you to resolve whatever the challenges are. So I would just say be open to incorporating, making sure getting to the doctor, to the primary care physician,
Mm-hmm.
and not ignoring what the body is saying, because the pain speaks. The
That's right.
pain is saying, "Hey, something is not functioning correctly. Don't ignore me."
Right.
Right?
Right.
Uh, and then be able to say, "Hey, I'm open
Mm-hmm.
to doing whatever is necessary
Mm-hmm.
to improve my overall health." And that's a decision,
That
right?
is a
That's a
decision. Yes. And I love how you are highlighting. I'm always with clients, okay, we can talk about trauma all day. We can talk about hurt and pain all day, and we need to process that and we need to pray over that. And we also need to talk about what's your role today about moving forward towards healing. And so you highlighted what that we have a role when we talk about stress and feeling overwhelmed. Yes, there are lots of factors that cause stress. There are internal things happening as well as external things happening.
external.
We have
Yes.
to look at if we focus on the things that we have no control, we will stay stressed.
Mm,
But we have to
yeah.
look at what are the things that I can control and influence, and then what do I do moving forward to address that, to cope with it, to reduce my stress. And so you're speaking to that responsibility.
I would say too, we have to be proactive in these things, and we have to be intentional.
Hmm.
So, like responding to something after the stress has caused a great deal of decline or deterioration, that's being more reactive. But we want to be proactive,
Yes.
and we want to practice preventative measures, which means
Hmm.
that every day I need to have self care built in. I can't wait till the weekend,
Right.
because the stressors, that toxic stress and that tolerable stress, is not
Hmm.
going to wait until the weekend.
No, it's not.
So between now and the weekend, it's eating at me,
Right.
right? And then when
Hmm.
I get to the weekend, I'm exhausted. Ooh, ah, you know, and then I'm trying to binge sleep and all of that. So
Hmm.
the thing is, every day being intentional about incorporating some strategies to improve health. So that means taking a lunch break, right? Sometimes people are
Hmm.
powering through, and it's almost a badge of honor. Oh, who I don't take a lunch break. Yeah,
Yes. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So
D-
get,
Drinking
identify
water.
absolutely drinking water, taking a walk, getting some sunshine. It may
Yes.
be playing a 5-minute game. It may be reading a good book or listening to a podcast.
Listening to
Definitely
music.
listening to
Yeah.
music, feeding our spirit, and maybe listen to
Meditation.
meditation, right? And so there's
Deep, deep breathing, muscle relaxation.
yes, yes, absolutely. There's so many. I mean, talking about what you can do with stress, we can literally be here for another 30 minutes, but we're not going to do that.
Yes.
So for sure, but there's so many ways of being able to do that. So let's pivot. I'm really enjoying this conversation. So let's talk a little bit about you have an event coming up. I'm going to put it on the
Yes.
ticker here, called the Shepherd
The
Symposium.
Shepherd's Care Symposium. Yes.
So talk a little bit about that and how can people register and learn more.
Yes. So I love to use, it's easy to sell a product that you believe in. And
Mhm.
so because I believe in self-care, and seek to practice it, it's easy for me to sell it. And I'm passionate about helping and supporting other pastors, ministry leaders, and counselors, because
Mhm.
just because we function in those roles
Yes.
don't mean that we're practicing self-care.
Yes.
And it's, you never get to the point where you master self-care.
Right.
That's an ongoing, continuous journey, as we're moving through life. And so, my heart is just to share some tools that would help, because the statistics really show where we are. There's this one study that I looked at on pastoral burnout, and it talked about, it says 75% of pastors report being extremely stressed or highly stressed. 75, that's 3 out of 4.
Wow.
90% work between 55 to 75 hours per week.
Wow.
90% feel fatigued and worn out every week.
Mm.
70% say they're grossly underpaid. Now that's stress. You don't have enough money coming in. That's financial stress.
Yeah.
40% report a serious conflict with a parishioner at least once a month. So that's
Mm.
just some statistics on the pastors. Now on the counselor side, because the Shepherd's Care Symposium is a day of self-care for pastors, ministry leaders, and counselors. And so these statistics reveal to us the need and the relevancy of what we're doing.
Yes.
So, with that study, this is a study from Simple Practice. It says top contributors to burnout among counselors, work life balance challenges, 60% report having work life balance challenges, administrative burdens, 55%.
Mm.
So that's 1 out of every 2 people,
Wow.
55%. Compassion fatigue, 54%. Because as we're listening and helping other people resolve their stressors, vicariously, we're absorbing that energy, right?
Absolutely.
We're not exempt. So
Mm.
stressors in life. So this is the stuff outside of your vocation or
Yeah.
occupation. 48%. Personal dealing with insurance, low
Mm.
pay, and the severity and complexity of clients increasing. So we see that these different things uh, are definitely factual, they're happening. And within our demographic, we can't ignore it. We can't put on the cape and say that's not for us, that's just for them. But it helps us to model by, and it becomes more powerful when we're able to sit
Mm.
with our clients or with our parishioners and say, hey, this is what I'm doing to regulate my blood pressure or
Yeah.
to manage diabetes, or these are some preventive measures that I'm taking because I have a family history of
Yep.
hypertension and diabetes,
Mm.
so forth and so on. Or this is the support group I'm utilizing because I've experienced grief and loss, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I'll tell you this: I was helping one person that was dealing with depression, and the person was telling me that they had not been eating and they had
Mm.
been getting proper hydration.
Yeah.
So I asked them, I said, so do you have any bottled water in the house or a favorite bottle that you use? Oh, yes, I do. I said, can you go get it now? I said, do you have any bananas in the house? Because I happen to have some bananas in my house that Dale was doing virtual. And I said, go get your banana. I said, I'm going to go get my banana and we're going to sit and we're going to eat some bananas. Because the person said they hadn't eaten, they hadn't had any hydration. So right then and there on the spot, we were
Yeah.
able to address those issues just like that.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Where can people register? I mean, let me just say this. This is an amazing event. I know you said it's for self-care. I love to say it's for soul care, because our souls or our minds, our will, our emotions. And so it really helps to address your soul. It's a time to where helpers, pastors, leaders, counselors, ministry leaders designate a time to just focus on being poured into. You cannot
Yes.
pour you cannot pour out of an empty cup, right? And so this is a time where we're poured into. You share your knowledge, expertise. This is my second time going to be there with you, and so I'm really excited. So really quickly before we wrap up, where can
Yes.
people
Yes.
go to register?
So March the 3rd, as you mentioned, is the first Monday in March. It will be at the Dwelling Place International Church in Collierville, Tennessee. The time is from 7:30 to 3:30. And it's going to be wonderful. We're going to have breakfast and lunch will be included. During that first hour with the breakfast, we're going to have a saxophonist that will be there setting the atmosphere, serenading as individuals are coming in to sign in. It's going to be great. And then we'll have none other than the renowned licensed clinical social worker, B. Wendy Jackson, who will be on program. And you will be giving us a motivational moment, like talking about your personal journey for self-care and walking us through the components of centering prayer. I'm
Yes.
excited about that.
Excited.
I'll be doing a keynote on self-care, your greatest investment. Woohoo!
Mhm.
And then
Good.
that'll be followed by a psychologist, Dr. Shanda Murphy, and her colleague, Michael Burnham. They're going to talk about self-compassion, and they're going to take the audience through mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Mhm.
During the lunch hour, we're going to have licensed massage therapists on site doing chair massages for those that sign up
Oh,
and want to
yeah.
take advantage of that. And that's all inclusive. Um,
Yes.
we'll be having giveaways after lunch. We'll have Mr. Paul Burkus, who is a licensed professional counselor. He'll be talking about DBT skills, dialectical behavior therapy, and how DBT and music therapy combined could help to reduce stress. And he's
Mhm.
also going to do an experiential activity with the audience. It's going to
Mhm.
be great. And lastly, we're going to have a theatrical production from Innovation Church. And they have just a stellar drama ministry. Whereas last year they performed at the Orpheum and about sold the place out with Her
Yeah.
Needs, His Needs stage play. So of course, they're going to kind of, condense it down for us for what we're doing. But it's going to be related to that self-care theme.
Mm.
And then we're going to have nurse practitioners on site doing blood pressure checks and
Mhm.
offering wellness services. We're going to have vendors there, plenty giveaways. And oh, I almost forgot this. We've been approved for 3 continuing education hours through the
Woo-hoo.
National Board of Certified Counselors. Yes,
Wow.
so for the clinicians, you get 3 continuing education hours through NBCC.
Nice.
So I tell you, God has just, he has just shined his light on us, his faces, in our direction. And I'm excited about it. And only for $50. And then the cost of there's like a surcharge on the website, like $3 and some change. But you
Where
get
can people
all of
go?
that.
Where can people go for their tickets? Is it on the
Uh,
event?
Simple Tix, I think it's simple SIMPLE Tix.com, and it should be on that site, and they'll find the Shepherd's Care Symposium, and then also they can go to my Facebook page, Fredrick Gillam, and I have flyers posted. So we have QR codes, we have links that individuals can use as well, or they can call 901-620-9120. That's Aesthetic Life Counseling Services. So that's the host for the Shepherd's Care Symposium, my private practice. And it can call or email
Mhm.
Aesthetic Life. That's AESTHETICLIFE, Aesthetic Life 2012 at gmail.com. And then I would be glad to forward, me or somebody on my team would be glad to forward a flyer with the QR code or get the link to them so that they could register. And I'm encouraging people, register early because we will have a cutoff.
Yeah. That's.
And our whole goal for participants is to walk away refreshed,
Mhm.
renewed, and revived. And
Wow.
it is going to be phenomenal. I'm,
I
I'm so excited. I can't wait.
I said, look, I'm excited with you and for you. Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation. Fredrick. For people who are listening today, again, I'm going to share this I'm going to upload this, and this will be live, and I'll tell you offline when it will be live for sure. But definitely, well, I could say now, I'm going to make sure that it's aired by on the 24th of February, so at least people can listen to it. I don't know when your cutoff date is, so you can kind of tell me offline. But for people who are listening, feel free to subscribe to the Empower to Empower You podcast, and you can see that on the ticker as well. And I will put Fredrick's information as in the show notes. And if you have any questions and need to email me about anything, my email is hello@againstallodds.pcs.com. And again, I will share Fredrick's information for sure. So thank you. Any final word?
Oh, B. Wendy, thank you.
You're
I'm
so
telling you,
precious.
this has been such a treat for me to be with you once again, and I hope we'll be able to do this plenty more times. And look, you'll even be able to give me some tips on how to get a podcast going because you're very proficient at it.
Thank you so much. It would be my pleasure to help you. Absolutely. You have a lot to offer. Yes, yes,
Thank
yes, yes.
you.
You're so
Yes,
welcome.
so I'll look forward to talking with you, and especially looking forward to you being on program with the Shepherd's Care Symposium.
Yay. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this with me. I'm so excited. Thank you all for listening. Those of you who are listening live, or those of you who will listen later on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, appreciate you so much. And I cannot wait for you to blow up Fredrick's email and his phone and let the tickets be sold out so you can get in the house, get in the room on March the 3rd. All right. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Have a
Um,
great one.
you
Okay.
too. Bye bye.